So, without further ado, nurses are absolutely critical to the NHS. Well, you've heard from the regional director of the RCN. Now you're going to hear from somebody on the front line. Our very own roaring nurse, Joan Laplana.
Hello, you can come closer. No, I don't bite or anything, we're quite far away. First of all, I need to say your cakes are very good. Don't rubbish your cakes, I love them. And second, I want to say thank you to the People's Vote, who for the last 3 years have been every Saturday, informing and debating and giving a platform for trying to persuade people to change their mind and have a People's Vote, because we believe that the consent, we need consent, informed consent, because situations have changed a lot. But let me tell you why I'm here today. My name is Joe, and according to Theresa May, I'm a professional queue jumper, and also I'm a citizen of nowhere. I mean, if queue jumping was an Olympic sport, I think I will win a gold medal for Britain. That's my aspiration in the next Olympic Games. But as a nurse, I have a duty of care. I have a duty of care that do no harm, and it's my duty to tell all of you that if no Brexit goes ahead, no deal Brexit goes ahead, some of you may not survive, and I cannot sleep at night without saying that. And I'll tell you a bit that, and I bet that Mr. Johnson did not put that on the side of the famous red bus, instead he put 350 million, and I know a lot of you were worried and still worried about the NHS. But one of the things that worries most is the end of freedom of movement, not only for the Europeans, also for the 65 million of British. And I don't think that's a thing to celebrate. If that happens, it's going to put the NHS at serious risk. Because 70 years ago, there was the people from the Commonwealth who came and built the NHS. And in the last 10 years, have been the European nurses, especially from Portugal and Spain, like me, who have come, not because we steal jobs from the British people, it's because the NHS don't have enough nurses, and a lot of the hospitals, they have come to my country and recruited me, and that's why I came here 20 years ago. But what Mr. Johnson is thinking that everybody will want to continue coming to this country, I'm just going to tell him that that's a completely no sense, and I'll tell you why. The World Health Organization is forecasting that in 10 years will be 9 million of nurses shortage, not only here but also in the USA, in Canada, in Australia, everywhere in the world. That means that myself as a nurse, I can pack my bags and go anywhere I want, that I will have a job guaranteed for life. And 20 years ago, I decided to come to this country. I could have chosen any other country, but I came to England for various reasons. I was born in the 70s, and my mom and dad used to put me to sleep with the Beatles. I used to. Then I grew up. I was a teenager, and suddenly my favorite programs on television, there were Fawlty Towers and Manuel. I'm from Barcelona, also like Manuel. And also there was the Blackadder, and my favorite top of them was the Young Ones. And that's the culture I was seeing from the television, and that multiculturalism, that made me realize that Britain was very attractive. And then came the 80s and the music, and I was my teenage years, and I fell in love with Blur and also Oasis and all these things, and the fashion and everything. And then I did my nursing studies in Spain and finished in 1997. And I tried to find a job. Unfortunately, I did not have a permanent job. And my only chance to be able to afford living on my own was delivering pizzas. What a waste of my 3 years of university. And then I was in a terrace in a sunny day like today, reading the paper, and I saw an advert from English hospital in Sheffield, not far from here, that there was looking for nurses. I called to that advert, and that advert changed my life. I wanted to be a nurse, and I couldn't do it in Spain, and I took advantage of one of the freedoms that the European Union are giving me, is the freedom of movement. And I have benefited myself, but also, the most importantly, have benefited United Kingdom. I never look back. I came here, and then I fall in love. I only came for 6 months. I fall in love with the weather and a British girl, and now I have 3 children, beautiful children. I have a fantastic career as a nurse. And I don't regret at all my lifestyle. I love Britain, and I love also Spain, but here is my home, and I'm not planning to go anywhere. The problem is, my life has been turned upside down, not just as a nurse, but also as a citizen of Europe. And for the last 7 years, the hostile environment and the austerity have made my life very difficult. And because the hostile environment, famous by Mrs. May, is affecting just not only me, but hospitals all over across the country. 10,000 of my colleagues have already left. 10,000, that's a lot of nurses, nurses, doctors and everything, Europeans have left. And the ones who left here, it's a difficult choice because I cannot pack and go. I have a family, I have a 17-year-old son who say, I don't want to go. I have my 15-year-old daughter and my 7-year-old daughter. But a lot of us are waiting to see what happens. I can guarantee that if no Brexit goes ahead, a lot of us will also go. And so, and there's how that will affect us, yourself. We have currently 40,000 vacancies, 40,000 nursing vacancies, and then the provision is that there's going to be another 10,000 in the next 5 years. That means that it's getting very difficult to provide care. But as I say, it's absolutely insane to put barriers and make it more difficult for these nurses to come to this country. Because I can guarantee, I was thinking myself the other day, with the hostile environment and Brexit, if I was myself 20 years ago, would I have come to this country? And unfortunately, the answer was no. I would have gone probably to Ireland or another country inside the European Union who will have freedom of movement and a lot of easy to go in and out. Because believe me, the settled status, I got settled status, is still not a guarantee for life. My hands is in the Home Office, and after seeing the Windrush scandal, believe me, I have a lot of nightmares at home. But then, you say, that's from a European point of view. Then as a nurse, I'm a manager. I'll tell you a bit more about my job. Over the last 7 years, I've been quality improvement manager, and my job is to try to deliver the same quality of care with less resources and with less money. After 7 years, 2 months ago, I had a breakdown, and I was sick because I realized that I can no longer guarantee the safety of my patients. After 7 years, I'm not a magician. I'm in the NHS, its bones. I have wars in my hospital who are fundraising for basic equipment. And even the Red Cross 2 years ago declared an emergency, a humanitarian crisis. We are the 6th richest nation of the world. How can we have a humanitarian crisis in this country? I think that's absolutely insane. But then also, because of my accent, I get accused plenty of time to say, we want more British nurses. And I tell you something, I do want more British nurses also. I want nurses from anywhere. If it's British, better. But you think, okay, what's the plan for the government to fill the gap? And they had the bright idea to remove the bursaries. Now, if you want to be a nurse, you need to spend £50,000 to be able to come out of the university and be a nurse. That to earn miserably £12 an hour. For £12 an hour, you need to be £50,000 in debt. No wonder now the applications have dropped completely. That means that if you put together those environment and Brexit, in the last 7 years since the Tory are in power, every day 90 nurses are leaving the NHS. Every day. That's over 3 wars in the Queen's Medical Hospital. Every day. That's completely unsustainable. And I have sleepless nights, and I cry a lot at home because as a nurse, I cannot tolerate seeing people suffer. And I have nightmares, especially at night, because as a manager, I dare to go to hospital in the morning and to see how many people are in the corridors. And in the last few years, I have seen that, and I've seen and I treat patients, doctors and everything, in places that you never thought about it. The problem is, the thing is only going to get worse. And that means that these 40,000 vacancies that we have now, that means that the people who are currently working are overworked and overstretched. And overworked and overstretched get tired nurses. If you are tired, you make mistakes. The problem is in the last few years, the mistakes have gone through the roof. And the litigation to the NHS is costing have doubled in the last few years. That means that people are suffering. And I don't know if you saw the news yesterday, it was a woman from Doncaster who told Mr. Johnson, austerity is costing life. I'm telling you, it cost an excess of 120,000 lives. That's a lot of life that couldn't be avoided if austerity was gone. And you say, nurses and doctors make mistakes, but when you make mistakes, it's not only the patient who suffers, also the nurses. And for you, if I commit a mistake, for me also, it's a very career-ending. And since 2010, over 300 nurses have committed suicide, have rocketed, and the chances of a nurse committing suicide is 24% more than a normal population. We have had enough, and finally, they broke me 2 months ago, because I was planning for winter, and I realized that my job was impossible. I had a mission impossible. How can I plan when I have less money, less staff, staff are leaving constantly, and I need to look at my manager and my chief executive and say, I don't know how we're going to do next winter. I don't know how we guarantee the safety of the patients. And then you see also yesterday all the headlines, and normally the NHS, unfortunately, is always for the wrong reasons. For the first time in history, over half of the hospitals in this country, they're missing the 18 weeks target. That means in theory, when you go to see the GP and you have an illness, you have 18 weeks to start the treatment into the hospital. Over half of the hospital are missing that. That means that if you have cancer, that's costing your life. And unfortunately, the cancer survivals in United Kingdom are dropping, and we are now at the bottom of Europe. I didn't see that on the side of the bus. And now came to the hard Brexit. I found absolutely unbelievable that a government is planning and is ordering hospitals to stockpile body bags. Did you see that on the side of the bus? They have ordered to stock body bags. And also, they're putting at risk the supply of medicines. And that means that I was approached 10 minutes ago by a lovely lady here, this in the audience, who wants to remain anonymous, that is telling me that her husband have epilepsy. And he's taking drugs, and before, 7 years ago, before he went on drugs, he was unable to work, was having constantly seizures, and it was quite bad health. Since then, the drugs that is giving him means that he's come back to work and is having a normal life. The problem is, with the Yellow Hammer report, I've not read it, his medication is on the potential shortage of leaves. And my question to you is, how many lives are you willing to sacrifice for Brexit? None. Are you willing to sacrifice her husband to be able to deliver Brexit? I didn't see that on the side of the bus. And just to finish, if also my fears is that if no Brexit happens, with the situation is now the NHS, we are in a very vulnerable position. And Mrs. Strum is waiting at the other side of the Atlantic, rubbing his hands and planning to piece by piece privatize the NHS. I don't know if you have enough money in the bank account, but do you know how many families go bankrupt in America every year because they cannot afford their care? Over half a million families, they need to decide between living or having a home. I think that's absolutely shocking, and I don't want to live in a country that I need to ask for the wallet before I ask you what's your symptoms. On that point, I will resign. I don't want to be a nurse anymore. Yeah? Just to finish, if you see somebody who is still supporting Brexit, and if you go to work, because there's still a lot of people supporting Brexit, looking at the polls, ask this question to them. What level of mortality are you willing to accept if a no-deal Brexit go ahead? Are you willing to sacrifice your husband, your wife, your grandmother, or your children? If the answer is no, we need to stop that. If for that reason, I ask you, all of you, to come on the 19th of October down to London, because we need to be the biggest march in history. We need to be more than 1 million than we were last time. All of us need to jump to buses. These buses here from People's Vote, they're going to put, and we're going to be in London on the 19th, asking Mr. Johnson to stop this madness, and also to be in the European. To carry on in the European. Because I'll tell you, they say that this yellow hammer is the worst case scenario. And I heard the other day Mr. Farage and the others saying, oh, why they don't publish the best scenario? And I'll tell you why. Because we already have it. We are in the European Union, and that's the best scenario, and I want to be on it for the rest of my life. Thank you.
Wow, wow. He's called the roaring nurse. Did he roar? Wonderful. Thank you, roaring nurse. As usual, inspiring. And put that in your diaries, everyone. 19th of October. It is absolutely essential.